spin to test your ability to recover.
Okay.
I'm sure they wouldn't do that if it wasn't recoverable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're in that airplane for about 4 or 5 months of the 11-month program. Upon graduating from that phase, then you move to the T-38, which is the training equivalent of the F-5 twin-engine supersonic jet. And Ken, it was such an amazing thing to me personally. I would, on days that I wasn't scheduled a flight, which was rare because it's a fairly condensed schedule, I would actually take my own car and give my wife and kids a kiss goodbye, and I'd go out to the perimeter road and watch the other students in the traffic pattern and just think that just a few months ago, I didn't even know how to fly an airplane, and here I am in a solo on occasion in the supersonic aircraft. It was just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. A dream come true, really.
That's incredible. And you can see it's like yesterday to you.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, during those days, and I'm making some assumptions, the program overall hasn't changed dramatically from what I experienced, but through the course of your entire training, all the testing, all the check rides, all the various phases that you get through, you end up getting ranked in from 1 through 60. Now, the classes all start at 60. Mm-hmm. There's multiple bases, as you know, across the country. So there's lots of pilots being graduated, but at each particular base, there is a class of 60 moving through the program, and 2 weeks behind that's another class of 60. Well, the washout rate's about 50%. So it was intimidating right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. But at the end of all that, you get ranked, and then you get close to graduation, and now it's fairly clear you're going to make it through the program. And so you get an opportunity to actually help guide where you're going for an actual career platform. And the way it worked at the time, the top 5% of the graduates get their choice, period, if that frame is available. So, those guys are choosing the F-15s, the F-16s, now the Raptors of today. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking 5% of class 60, of course, that's only 3 guys. I was in the next group, so I wasn't quite in that top bunch. No regrets here, but I wasn't there. I was in the next group where I was either eligible to be returned as a first assignment instructor pilot, which is not at the top of any student's list, quite frankly, or I could have more of an influence on where I would go from an aircraft frame and location standpoint. I knew very early on I did not want to stay on board as a first assignment instructor pilot because you live that basic life of a student candidate for the next 4 years. It's a very grueling schedule.
4 years?
12-hour day. Yep, 4 years is the assignment. It's 12 hours on each shift, and it rotates from week to week. So it's 12 hours daytime, 12 hours nighttime. It's brutal. I had a burning desire to have a combat mission-based aircraft, and I really wanted to go to a location that would give myself, my family, some exposure to the rest of the world, and had a mission that potentially could really, really contribute. Mm-hmm. And I knew at the time that the B52 was developing a lot of conventional tactics at Anderson Air Force Base in Guam. In fact, we were doing a lot of low-level night vision goggle flying. And so I asked for a B-52 to Guam, and that's what I got. I was thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled.
Now, was that a unique request in your class? Now, I mean, the B-52 it was even older than you back then.
Oh, it was. Yeah. I flew the G model, didn't fly a single frame that was younger than me. Mm-hmm. The avionics, of course, had been upgraded. The bombing systems through time have been upgraded. And to this day, internally, it's very, very capable, as we all know. But the frame itself, it's 1957, 1958 model, with tens of thousands of hours at this point in time, but very, very durable platform, and just one heck. It's an easy airplane to fly, a very difficult airplane to fly really well. But I was so excited. When I arrived in Guam, course, there's the whole tropical climate. You're on this island. It's all of that going on, and you're really excited about all that. And they did still have a very strategic oriented mission, if I can say just that. That went on for about another year before they went completely to a conventional type of mission where we were flying down to Australia and up to the Korean Peninsula and practicing what we thought would become a battle tactic, this low-level penetration at night with night vision goggles. So we're talking about taking a 500,000-pound aircraft with a 200-foot wingspan into a threat area at 250 feet at night. Right.
That's unreal thinking about that, because that plane was designed to strike from what, 35, 40, 42,000 feet?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. That was what the idea was, right? To fly higher and faster so that no one could catch you, be out of the range of SAMs. And here you are 250 feet above the, that's unbelievable. You think about it. Now, from a historical perspective, forgive me, but I love this stuff. So you're on Guam. I'm a big World War II buff, right? Told you I love Curtis LeMay. Now, is that the same quote unquote Air Force that flew the B-29s over Japan? Or it was, okay. Because I was wondering historically how that works.
Yeah, the 29s during, especially those that like the Enola Gay, they came out of Saipan and Tinian.
Yeah, but they flew to Guam as well, right?
But it was the same chain of islands, On a clear day, you could see Rota and Saipan from Guam. But same group, same area.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing historically, just thinking about it from my point of view. So that's cool. Okay, so you were in Guam, and this is 1987, 88, somewhere in that line? Or?
87, 88, 89, and into 1990. And we were training the mission that we believed eventually someday might have to be deployed in an actual event somewhere, maybe a regional or potentially a global conflict, I suppose. But and so the missions were quite grueling. I mean, we would take off, and the flight times were anywhere from 11 to 14 hours, depending on whether you're going to Korea or Australia. There were a few good deals during all those 4 years. By that, I simply mean deployments for 2 or 3 weeks to participate in more focused exercises with either the RAAF in Australia or our Korean counterparts, although they weren't. It was mostly us in Korea. The ground forces is where they came into play. But so it was the B-52 is not one made for comfort. Let's put it that way. So it's a big flying gas tank. It can go a long way. And with air refueling, the only thing that prevented us in the G model from being able to circumnavigate the globe was the burn rate of oil in the engines.
Oh, is that right?
Outside of that, we could have easily circumnavigated the globe.
Now, has that happened? Has a B-52 done that?
Maybe the H models. The burn rate of oil is not quite as high in the H models, and the H models are the only ones that are flying today. There's only 2 units left. And they're the first generation high bypass fans that you see on the modern jet airliners, just not quite as efficient, not quite as large. I think they are capable, and certainly some of the other platforms like the B-2 are more than capable of that. So it was a great time. We really enjoyed the mission. It was a great group, a great team. And then a political decision was made that we're going to shrink the Air Force a little bit, and Guam was closed. And those in the squadron who still had commitment or wanted to stay were reassigned to different locations. And fortunately, I say this until you hear the rest of this, fortunately for me, my assignment continued to another conventional base. It just so happens that base was at Loring, Maine, in the northern tip of Maine. So my family and I moved from year-round 85 degrees to a place that gets an average snowfall of 170 inches a year and had about a month and a half of summertime. So I think my wife actually cried for the first 2 months we were there. In fact, we arrived in June, early June, and there were still snow piles in some of the larger parking lots around.
Oh,
but the mission continued.
Oh, that's cool. I just some funny things I was thinking about when you said Maine. First, my dad's from Maine. I live in New England. I go up there a lot, but I've never been that far.
Yeah.
I've never been that far north. So that is out there. But I believe I want to say, because I'm an '80s guy too. The movie War Games, wasn't that?
Yeah.
Loring, the one they were the kid they were talking to see if the missile was actually going to hit him.
I think it was.
I think it was. You were up there, man. Because you had Loring, Pease, and Otis Air Force Base on the East Coast. And I know there were always flights between them because you could see B-52s every once in a while fly down.
Yeah, that just to give you an idea how remote it is there. The largest county in the contiguous United States, and we would fly a practice low level, daytime or nighttime, in and around our base. And it was a 6-7 hour flight, low level. We're still traveling at 250 to 300 knots. And we would see a sawmill that was one of our practice targeting sites, and maybe a half dozen houses. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were covering hundreds of kilometers,
That's crazy.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you from your story, but
no,
that's really
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting part of how my career really ended up being a practical application of what I'd been trained to do. As I was leaving Guam, one of my lifelong friends to this day, he was staying in Guam because he was one of those few guys that he came to the Air Force more than happy and willing to participate and contribute, but he always had an ultimate goal to fly for the commercial airlines. And he'd made the decision he was going to exit instead of be reassigned. So we parted ways on Guam. We remain in contact to this day, but as far as day-to-day, seeing each other every day, we left. And he said to me, his name was Jim, and he said, Doug, the world environment is changing. What are you going to do if you actually have to deploy and you're in a conflict? And I said, Jim, I almost feel there's this obligation. And not that I was a warmonger by any means, but
of course,
I just had this drive inside me that I had this debt I had to pay. I mean, I can't explain it beyond that. It sounds corny. I get it. But that's the best I can do at explaining it. And sure enough, we deployed, or we were relocated in that May-June timeframe. And by August, we were deploying for Desert Shield.
Amazing, the timing of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
One of the things I was curious about what you said about being careful about wanting to practice your trade. I think that is embedded in a lot of warriors, Doug. It's something that people say, you really want to inflict or violence on other people, and that's not it at all. You really deep down want to know if everything you've been trained to do, when that moment comes, can you execute? Can you actually do what you've been trained to do for so long? That's a lot of it is being sure. That's why you train so hard, right? You train so hard so that it becomes automatic for when the time comes, but no one knows how they're going to perform until they're put into that situation. And we all want to know, can we do? I mean, deep down, we want to know, can we do it?
That's exactly it, Ken. You hit it right on the head. That was exactly the drive. We've been trained to do this for 4 or 5, 6, 7 years, longer in some of the other experienced crew members' cases. Mm-hmm. Can we really execute to the level that we're training to? That was really it.
Man, so Desert Shield pops up. And
it was
assigned to Diego Garcia? Is that where you went?
Yeah. Although it wasn't really clear to us. I mean, we get a call. I think it was like August 2nd. I was home actually, and we were getting a squadron recall. Everybody was paying attention to the news, so we knew what was going on in the Middle East.
Right.
And we all show up the squadron. You've been through these exercises, and we get a very short briefing. Basically, you're going to go home, pack for 30 days. You cannot share